How is the Gretsch Gin Rickey after 2 years? Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett and welcome to this 2-year review of the Gretsch Gin Rickey acoustic electric guitar. And I'm going to put a little I'm going to put a little star thingy next to acoustic electric there because it's a different kind of acoustic electric. And this is, for those of you that don't know, a very cool budget guitar that's really inspired by some of the old really inexpensive catalog guitars of yesteryear, of some of the stuff that you would order and it really wasn't built very well, the old ones, but they had a charm to them, they had a sound to them, and for many players back in the day that was what they learned on, and also just get some cool tones and things. They're very unique instruments. Now, I also have the Gretsch Jim Dandy, as many of you know, and I have a similar experience with that one, so I'm going to talk about that one in conjunction with this one and how kind of having both has changed the way that I've used this one. So this guitar is basically a Jim Dandy with this cool pickup that's loaded into the sound hole. Now, Gretsch was pretty smart to put this model out because that was a common mod people did to their Jim Dandy. So they just said like, hey, well, why don't we make a model that already has that? Because of that, I have this set up entirely as an electric guitar. So I'm not playing this one really acoustic now, and what do I mean by that? Well, it really has to do with the strings. I actually don't have this loaded with acoustic strings right now. In fact, I have it loaded with flat wounds, and the timing of this was kind of cool. So I'd been thinking about experimenting with flat wounds on this guitar for a while, and then Ernie Ball just came out with a new series of flat wound strings that I was really excited about because they finally put out flat wounds that have an unwound G string. Most flat wound sets have a wound G string, which really changes the way that you bend specifically. So Ernie Ball came out with this really cool set of flat wounds that has an unwound G string. So I finally decided to take the plunge again. I had been thinking about doing this for a while, and I just decided to string it up with these a couple weeks ago. So the reason that I'm running it totally electric is because I also have the Jim Dandy, which gives me the acoustic sound of the same guitar, essentially. Now, I will say that the pickup sounds really good still if you use acoustic strings with it. I just wanted it to kind of be pushed a little further in that direction. Acoustic strings don't traditionally work too well with electric pickups. They actually worked reasonably well with this. I think you can get some really cool tones with acoustic strings on this guitar, and if you want to hear what it sounded like with acoustic strings, not only can you see my original review, which I'm going to link, but you can also actually hear this guitar on studio recordings. I've used this for a number of studio recordings, blues songs, for some really cool rhythm tones, and that was recorded acoustically with acoustic strings. So why did I use this one instead of the Jim Dandy? Well, this was actually a gift from my father, and he particularly likes my blues songs, and I just want Dad to be proud of me. Anyway, I'm going to link those right there, you can hear two different blues songs that both have the Gin Rickey recorded with a condenser microphone for some kind of cool rhythm parts and things. And that's it. It's just a straightforward, really cool guitar. Now, there is one small mod that I've done to this guitar. It is not affecting the way that you hear it. It's affecting the way that I play it, and that is I did install a nut with slightly wider string spacing. My one qualm with both the Jim Dandy and the Gin Rickey is that the nut has very narrow string spacing, and there's a little more room on the fingerboard for the string spacing to be wider. So I was able to do this on my own. The last time I had a tech install a nut for me, it was like 75 bucks. So it's not like crazy expensive if you want to have it done. I do think that that makes it just much more comfortably playable. On the Gin Rickey, the bridge saddle was also a little bit high, and that's something I still might file down at some point. Now, the one trouble that I've had with this guitar is that I did have some problems with a little bit of warping around the bridge, which started to pull the bridge up. Now, it should be noted that this is a bolt-on bridge, right? Underneath those two little dots on the bridge, there are bolts that go through. And I found that it wasn't a problem with those, it was pulling up, but it was actually kind of a problem in the wood around it where it was sort of starting to bend a little bit, which was leading to the bridge raising. Now, it's still very playable. It's something I'm going to get addressed at some point coming up. And it has been in a room that, as I try to humidity control, I try to take care of the water in the air in the room where my guitars are. We did struggle with it this year because we had an exceptionally humid summer, so it was something that I kind of had to be on top of all the time and wasn't always 100% with. That being said, my Jim Dandy was in the exact same room, and it didn't have any problems at all. So one of the things that that does tell me is that quality control might not be 100%. Now, that doesn't really surprise me considering that this is from a big company and it's a very, very low price point. It's not even a deal breaker. Again, even with the bridge starting to pull up a little bit, it's still very, very playable, and I don't foresee it kind of going any further than it is. It is something that I'll have fixed. Just be aware of that when you're looking at something this inexpensive. If you get one and it has bridge problems, I wouldn't say to freak out that the whole series is bad. I think that you probably just got one of the ones that was like that. And I have having had two of them now, I can say one had the problem, one didn't. I don't really know what the percentage might be, but again, just something to be aware of. So all in all, is it worth it? That's one of the big questions that all of you are going to be asking, and I would say yes. Now, obviously, I got it as a gift. I mentioned that, but this is absolutely something I would get on my own. The Jim Dandy I did get on my own, and it's just so cool for how inexpensive it is. You know, this costs less than a new Strymon pedal, right, for a really cool old-fashioned guitar. And as I mentioned with the Jim Dandy, one of the things that I really like about these guitars is they're not trying to be anything that they're not, right? You know, sometimes you find these budget guitars and they're sort of trying to project like they're, you know, oh, well, it's up with these higher-end guitars, and you know, maybe they'll even have some really cheap ones that have fancy inlays, but if you look closely, they're done really poorly. This one is kind of like, no, this is a cheap guitar that is paying homage to cheap guitars of the past. It has a sound. It's not like the most versatile instrument in the world, right? It's got that kind of pleaky, thin, tinny acoustic guitar sound. You can still use it for a lot. I think you'll hear in the recordings that I know you're listening to because the songs are awesome. It records really well, it sounds really good, and it sits well in a mix, so it's not like it's just a one-trick pony. There's a lot you can do with it, and obviously with this one, as you can see with the electric strings plugged into an amplifier, it sounds really cool. So it's not the most versatile, but it's also not a one-trick pony. I think they're no-brainers to have one around because of how inexpensive they are again, and it's almost like a fail-safe built in to keeping it because, you know, if you look for one used, they're so cheap. It's like if you need to sell something, you almost go like, it's not even worth selling because what I would get for it doesn't even come close to how much I enjoy having it. So that's kind of my spiel on both the Gin Rickey and the Jim Dandy. I will also put links below in the description to the Jim Dandy reviews that I've done, both the original one and I also did a 2-year review of that one. So now I'm going to play a little bit more electric tone for you. I'm plugging into a Supro Tremo-Verb, and I'm also going to play here just acoustic because even with the flat wound strings, it actually still sounds quite nice. So that's, again, for me, kind of a cool way to have both and utilize both for what they do differently, as opposed to just kind of having two of the same thing. So let us know what you think. Do you have the Jim Dandy? Do you have the Gin Rickey? I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video.